Molly awoke to a haze of orange. Well, it took her a minute to figure out, but she was pretty sure she hadn't actually woken up. For one thing, she was surrounded by orange clouds forming bookshelves upon bookshelves, and little sheep kept passing by her periphery. But for another, she simply didn't feel awake. She felt like she was 5 years old again, falling asleep in her mother's lap by the fire, before such a scenario would cause any panic. Just barely conscious enough to grasp the smells of hot cocoa and the sounds of gentle chattering. Wait, she really did smell hot cocoa. She could almost swear it. From the direction of several scattering sheep, a boy appeared out of the mist, dressed in a vest and long orange cape, a cup of hot cocoa in hand. He appeared suddenly, but it didn't surprise Molly enough to pull her out of her stupor. It felt as if the air itself was lulling her to sleep. "Who are you?" she managed to mumble, settling back down into what she realized was a beanbag made of clouds. She was vaguely aware that she was dreaming, but it was a nice dream, so she was in no hurry to leave. The boy, teenager? She couldn't quite tell how old he was, bowed with a little flourish and smiled before handing her the mug, which was warm to the touch. "Sylvester Ashling, at your service." Molly blinked, nursing the mug in her hands. Despite how suddenly everything was happening, she didn't really question any of the strangeness. It almost felt like she was unable to. Like being in the middle of a dream and turning into an elephant and just accepting it as perfectly normal. Without waiting for an answer to his introduction, Sylvester moved to a desk that Molly was pretty sure didn't exist a moment ago, then pulled out a sheet of paper and started writing on it with an old-fashioned quill pen. "And dear Molly Blinduff, yes? Looks here like you have an outstanding debt of dreams being taken away from you." Molly stared into her hot chocolate, wondering if she was supposed to drink it. She sort of felt like just sitting there and enjoying the smell. So you're a good dream to make up for it? That's nice." It occurred to her, just vaguely, that she didn't think her lips were moving. She was just kind of thinking thoughts, and they seemed to materialize in the air. But Sylvester definitely heard them, because as he spun around in his cushioned chair, he responded cheerfully. "Oh, I'm no dream. I mean, you are asleep and you are dreaming, but I'm as real as you. And this is the ether. You know, where epithets and other magic stuff is. As an official dream accountant, I get to have an office here without going insane. Pretty neat, huh?" He flashed a weirdly proud grin. Molly squinted at him very slowly. "So, what do you do, exactly?" He flipped his cape smugly. "Why, nothing much. I just keep tabs on people's dreams and then come to balance out their accounts if someone has their dreams taken away too many times, is all." He spun his chair around again, then suddenly put a foot against his desk to stop it while he was facing Molly. "You are long overdue for another chance in the waking world." Molly snuggled a bit further into her cloud beanbag, realizing that she was in, or at least appeared to be in, a set of soft purple and green pajamas. It seemed a bit silly that she was in PJs while the official dream whatever was wearing that. "So you're like a fairy godmother?" she mused, internally chuckling at the comparison. Everything made sense here, even nonsense. It was nice. "What?" Sylvester noted. He sounded just a little miffed at the comparison. "No, I had to earn a degree for all this. I'm more like a certified psychological doctor." "A fairy goddoctor, then," Molly retorted, her face actually contorting into the tiniest smug smile of her own. The boy scoffed and waved her off. "Whatever. You're under the sleep spell, you're a bit loopy, I get it. Anyway, we gotta settle this so you can get back to the real world before it starts affecting you permanently." "Before what does?" "The ether, keep up," the god doctor sighed. He twirled his pen between his fingers. "Now, if I'm correct, there's an event you wanted to go to. The Fleecity Charity Ball?" Molly nodded. "My best friends will be there, but even if I had the night off, Lorelei borrowed my purse and I haven't had time to alter my dress, and I don't have a way to get to the ball unless I ask for a ride." She nursed the hot mug in her hands and sighed. One of the tiniest sheep, with a bell on its neck, ran up to Molly and very gently headbutted her. The pink-haired boy waved a hand and it floated into his arms, baaing in a way that seemed very upset. "No, Mella, you're too small," Sylvester reprimanded it gently. "Now." He snapped his fingers and, in a flash, the clouds beneath his feet began to coalesce into another sheep. No, a ram, with curly horns protruding from the sides of its fluffy head. Much bigger than all the others that pranced around Molly's vision, this one seemed slightly clearer and more solid to the touch when it pressed its muzzle to her hand. "That'll take care of your ride. Now as for the dress." Molly gasped softly this time, as with another wave of the boy's hand, 2 toys materialized out of thin air, specifically the dolls she always kept by the register to cheer her on, a bunny and a bear, blinking dream dust out of their button eyes. "Red? Pin?" Molly asked. The stuffed animals looked up to her, the rabbit bouncing up and down and the bear clasping its paws together. For just a moment, she felt an overwhelming surge of emotion, before it was suddenly but gently muffled by the sleep spell she was under. "You two want to help Molly, right?" the doctor asked. Both toys nodded eagerly and were handed something like a cloud, but as they tugged on it, it unraveled into a sort of string that hung in the air. The rabbit bounded in between the threads, holding one end in his paw and weaving them together, while the bear held the floating object down with what little weight he had. Molly watched, mesmerized, as the whole process sort of time-lapsed before her. When the toys were done, she couldn't quite recall how they turned the threads into a fully fabric pattern, but she could see the beautiful dress that floated before her. A poof of brown and white with a colored sash and ribbons that matched the ones in her hair, and a capelet to match. It wasn't the same dress as the one from her closet. This one was far more beautiful, and she knew in an instant that it was tailored to fit her perfectly. "I do like to think of myself as a bit of a fashionista," the doctor remarked, pushing up his blue-tinted glasses. "Just one final touch should do the trick, I think." A snap of his fingers, and this time 2 glass rabbits from the shelves were teleported into his hands. Molly thought for a minute they might join Red and Pin in their dance, but instead, they slowly transformed into a pair of glistening glass slippers. Molly petted the ram beside her absent-mindedly while Sylvester started to ramble on about the terms of their contract, which Molly noted she had absolutely never signed. "This should cover you for the ball. Now, the only stipulation is that the magic of dream accountants is supposed to be strictly hush-hush, so after tonight, nobody you meet at the ball will remember you. The whole night will be like a dream they can't quite recall." "What about my friends?" Molly asked immediately. It felt like some of the sleepiness was wearing off, and the ram felt more solid beneath her fingers each minute. "They won't recall the ball, clearly, but if they already know you, their old memories won't be affected. No need to worry." Molly nodded. "All right, then I don't mind what else happens." "The other thing," Sylvester continued, pacing back and forth for no apparent reason besides maybe making his cape swish around, "is that you must be back before the clock strikes midnight. My magic is..." he coughed. "Still relatively weak, so it doesn't last very long. At exactly midnight, everything I've provided will transform back to normal, so you won't have a way home. Here, this will help you keep track of the time." From his desk, he tossed to her a beautifully engraved golden pocket watch. "I'll be sure to leave early enough," Molly concurred, barely catching it with her free hand. But wait, my sister has my purse right now, and honestly, I don't have very much money. How am I supposed to pay you?" Sylvester blinked. "Pay? Like money? Nothing, of course. I'm just here to provide you with a well-deserved second chance at a dream." He bowed once again, and this time Molly couldn't help but smile. "Wow, giving away so much for free. You must have a lot of friends." At that, Sylvester laughed. "Friends? I gave up on those a long time ago. I was foolish enough to trust someone once, a fellow dream accountant, and I saw how that turned out." Molly's smile slowly turned into a frown. "That doesn't sound very dreamy." "Well, for me, dreams are work," he replied with a dismissive wave. "But we all have our hardships, and you deserve a break from yours. Don't worry about your sister or idiot father tomorrow. They'll be sound asleep. And just because I know you're the type of person who cares too much for other people, I'll make sure they have pleasant dreams." Red and Pin, who had climbed atop the smallest sheep and were now riding it around, seemed to give Molly a nod of affirmation. It gave her the courage to nod back. "All right. Well, if you ever want me to, I'll be your friend." Sylvester seemed put off by the offer, but laughed it off. "No more changing the subject. The sleep spell is wearing off. Let's wake you up so you can start getting ready for the ball." And before she had a chance to respond, the orange haze suddenly filled Molly's vision and mind once more, until she felt herself waking from the strange dream, the very physical table still beneath her arms. Oh. There was a small pit of disappointment and resignation in her stomach as she realized she had been dreaming. It was easy to accept as real while she was actually asleep, but now that she was awake, it was obvious it had all just been wishful thinking. Tonight she'd be forced to work at the shop, undoubtedly too late into the evening to even think about running off all the way to the Fleecity mansion. Trying to shake off the second bout of disappointment, she yawned and stretched, almost falling backwards out of her chair by accident. Ah! But something stopped her. She rubbed the dust out of her eyes and turned around to see a large, dreamlike ram gently nuzzling the back of her chair. And on the countertop, Red and Pin, back to their regular inanimate selves, sat atop a neatly folded dress, with accessories and slippers placed beside them. Slowly, Molly reached into the pocket of her bear hoodie to pull out a small, weighted pocket watch, which told her it was exactly 8 o'clock a.m. Well, looked like she had enough time after all.